What if your HOA queen bee showed up at your door with a bullhorn and a sheriff to arrest you for rocking on your own porch swing? What if she'd spent months slandering you as the neighborhood rebel destroying property values with your unsightly relaxation? And what if the biggest twist was that you weren't just some old guy taking it lying down? You'd quietly bought the very station those cops called home. The sun rose over Willow Creek Estates like it was scared to shine too bright. Every lawn manicured to military precision, every mailbox the exact shade of approved beige, every bird feeder vetted by committee like it might smuggle in joy without permission. This was suburban America's prettiest prison, where the HOA ruled with an iron clipboard and called it community harmony. And right in the middle of it, rocking slow on his forbidden porch swing with a tall glass of sweet tea, sat Mr. Harlan Reeves, 76, ex-Marine, widower, and the only man in the neighborhood who still knew how to sit still without apologizing for it. For months, Victoria Langford, the self-crowned HOA president, had been painting Harlan as public enemy number one. That swing screams defiance, she'd hissed at block parties. He's anti-community, folks, lowering our property values with his lazy attitude. Neighbors nodded politely while she spread the whispers. Harlan was senile, a bad influence on the kids. The reason our street looked unprofessional. He'd heard every rumor, felt every side eye, but he never snapped back. He just sat there, sipping tea, watching. Because Harlan Reeves didn't fight with words first. He fought with patience. And patience, it turns out, can buy buildings. That morning the air felt electric. Victoria marched down the cul-de-sac like a general on a mission, her bob haircut slicing the breeze, board members trailing with clipboards, and that cursed bullhorn that squeaked every time she squeezed it. Mr. Reeves, she crackled through the speaker, voice dripping fake politeness. You're in violation again. Harlan didn't even look up right away. He swirled an ice cube, let it clink like it was giving him legal advice, then drawled. Violation of what now, Victoria? Breathing too loudly. She slammed her binder open like it was holy scripture. Section 8, paragraph 3.2. Your porch swing exceeds the approved 90-degree harmony angle by 12 whole degrees. Your boots are scuffing community paint. And don't get me started on those wind chimes from last month. Unauthorized auditory disruption. She jabbed a finger at his worn leather boots, the same ones he'd worn to his wife's funeral. This is for the greater good of our collective aesthetic. Harlan leaned back, swing creaking like an old blues guitar. Ma'am, these boots don't scuff paint. They just remind people what real footsteps sound like. And my swing? It ain't violating harmony. It's the only honest thing on this street. A couple of neighbors chuckled behind their blinds. Victoria didn't. Her smile tightened until it looked painful. We warned you. The HOA will not tolerate further disregard. Sheriff's office has been notified. Harlan topped off his tea. You ever notice how the more you scream harmony, the less peaceful you sound? Kinda like a dictator wearing a smiley face mask. Sirens wailed down Willow Creek Drive before she could answer. Red and blue lights bounced off waxed SUVs like a disco nobody asked for. Harlan didn't move. He just muttered, all this drama over a little rocking. You'd think I built a casino in the yard. 3 deputies stepped out looking equal parts confused and embarrassed. Victoria strutted forward, waving paperwork like she'd invented justice. Officers, this resident repeatedly violates our bylaws. He's trespassing against collective harmony. We demand immediate detainment. The lead deputy rubbed his neck. Ma'am, detainment for a porch swing? On his own property. On our rules, she snapped, voice climbing an octave. Enforce the ordinance. That's your duty. Harlan stood slow and deliberate, the porch boards sighing under his boots. Boys, before you cuff an old Marine for drinking tea on his own porch, maybe check who really signs the rent checks downtown. Victoria laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. He's bluffing. Just a bitter old man with too much time and too little respect. Then the sheriff's SUV pulled in. Sheriff Marcus Hale stepped out, calm as a Sunday sermon. The whole cul-de-sac went quiet. Morning, Harlan, the sheriff said, tipping his hat. Victoria's perfect bob almost vibrated. You know him? Everybody knows Harlan, ma'am, Hale replied, voice low. Good man. Served his country. She shoved the papers at him anyway. Then arrest him. He's undermining our community standards. Sheriff Hale folded the pages once without reading and handed them back. HOA bylaws aren't criminal code, Victoria. You can't arrest a man for sitting where he pays the taxes. Her face flushed the color of a stop sign. If you won't do your job, we'll citizens arrest him ourselves. She snapped her fingers. Two board members produced plastic zip-tie cuffs like they were handing out party favors. The deputies took a half-step back, trying not to grin. Harlan raised an eyebrow. Citizen's arrest, huh? That's new. Arresting a citizen for being a citizen. Technically, your dues aren't taxes either, but here we are. Victoria's voice cracked with rage. You're mocking the system. No, ma'am, Harlan said, stepping closer, calm as a sniper who already had the target in sight. I'm mocking nonsense. Before you slap those plastic toys on me, you might want to know whose name is on the deed to that fancy sheriff's station downtown. The air went dead silent. You could hear a lawn sprinkler 3 houses over. Deputies exchanged glances. Victoria stammered. You can't own a sheriff's station. That's preposterous. Oh, but he could. And he had. 5 years earlier, when the county was days from shutting the station down. No money for repairs, lights flickering, morale in the toilet. Harlan had walked in with a checkbook older than most of the deputies. Heard y'all were broke, he'd said quietly. I'll buy the building, lease it back for $1 a year. You keep your badges. I keep my peace of mind. They thought it was a joke. The check cleared. Every desk, every cruiser, every busted coffee maker now technically belonged to Harlan Reeves, the man Victoria had spent months slandering as the problem. Harlan unfolded the document right there on the porch. The county seal caught the sun like a golden middle finger. When you called the sheriff to arrest me, sweetheart, you were basically asking my tenants to evict their landlord. Kinda like asking a cat to bark. The cul-de-sac exploded. Laughter rolled like thunder. Phone shot up. Kids gasped. Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a goldfish drowning in reality. This is fraud. Bribery. Manipulation. Sheriff Hale finally let himself smile. It's all legal, ma'am. And if you keep yelling, I'll have to cite you for disturbing the actual peace. Victoria lunged anyway, zip ties shaking in her hand. Fine. I'll do it myself. She stormed the steps, face twisted in pure cartoon villainy. Harlan Reeves, you are under citizen's arrest. Harlan just raised his tea in salute. Ma'am, if you slap those on me, you're cuffing your HOA dues straight to your landlord. You sure that's the hill you want to die on? She froze mid-stomp. For one glorious second, the Queen of Willow Creek looked ready to faint. Then she hurled the zip ties to the ground, stomped them flat, and screamed, I hate this neighborhood. The entire street lost it. Cheers. Whoops, someone popped a soda like champagne. Free the swing, a kid yelled. Even the deputies were biting their lips to keep from laughing out loud. But Victoria wasn't finished melting down. She spun on the sheriff, finger jabbing. Arrest him for fraud. For mockery. For existing. One deputy rubbed his chin. Ma'am, that seal looks pretty official to me. And last I checked, mockery isn't a crime. If it was, you'd be serving life without parole. The crowd roared harder. Victoria screeched one last time, charged the porch like a woman possessed, and that's when Sheriff Hale finally stepped in. That's enough. Victoria Langford, you're under arrest for disorderly conduct. The handcuffs clicked. The HOA queen, clipboard and all, was marched to the cruiser in shiny silver bracelets, still ranting about bylaws and harmony while the neighbors filmed every glorious second. Harlan leaned back on his swing, took a long, slow sip of tea, and said with the tiniest grin, well, now ain't that poetic? The air changed after that, like years of bottled-up suburban frustration finally got uncorked. Neighbors spilled out of houses clapping, laughing, hugging strangers like they'd just won the lottery. Even the guy who always measured his grass with a ruler looked relieved. Maybe we should dissolve the board, someone whispered. Harlan raised his glass. Now that's the smartest sentence I've heard all year. Sheriff Hale joined him on the porch, voice low. County's gonna call me later asking what the hell happened. Harlan grinned. Tell him the truth. An old man drank tea, the HOA lost its marbles, and the sheriff remembered who pays the rent. Hale chuckled so hard, he almost dropped his hat. By afternoon, the story was everywhere. Kids rode bikes without fear of noise violation tickets. Flamingos and wind chimes popped up like victory flags. Barbecue smoke curled from grills 3 streets away. A week later, Harlan threw the biggest block party Willow Creek had ever seen. Streamers on mailboxes, sheriff manning the grill in an apron that read, "Property of my landlord." Deputies flipping burgers while swapping stories with folks they used to ticket. The smell of ribs and sweet corn mixed with pure freedom. Harlan stood at the center, spatula in one hand, tea in the other, looking like the mayor of common sense. He'd nailed a big wooden sign to the gate, "Community Barbecue. Everyone welcome, except former HOA board." Right as the music hit its groove, a familiar screech cut through the laughter. "Let me in. This is a violation of my rights." Everyone turned. There was Victoria, out on bail, hair frazzled, clutching her crumpled binder like a security blanket. She stomped up to the gate, red-faced and reeking of entitlement. "I have every right to attend this community event." Sheriff Hale didn't even look up from the ribs. "Ma'am, you're trespassing. This is private property. Our landlord says you're banned," Deputy Wilson added, pointing at the sign. The crowd howled. Kids started chanting, "Karen banned. Karen banned." Victoria stomped her foot like a toddler denied candy. "You can't do this." Harlan strolled over, calm as ever. "Ma'am, I own the property. I make the guest list. And after last week, you're about as welcome here as termites at a lumberyard." She gasped, sputtered, then spun on her heel and stormed off, leaving a trail of humiliation thicker than her bylaws. The laughter that followed could have powered the whole grid. As the sun dipped low, Harlan tapped his glass for attention. "Friends, one last announcement." He pulled out another envelope, thicker this time, county seal shining. "While y'all were watching Victoria measure mailboxes, I picked up a little something extra. Turns out the HOA office was behind on its lease too, so I bought it." The crowd went feral. Cheers, tears, high fives. Sheriff Hale almost dropped a rib. "Harlan, you didn't." "Oh, I did," Harlan said with that sly grin. "As of this morning, the HOA office is closed under new management, mine." He held up a photo of the building with a fresh sign slapped across the door. "Closed. HOA under new management. Reeves Properties." People lost their minds. Someone yelled speech. Harlan stretched like a man who'd just mowed the lawn of tyranny. "Folks, let this be a reminder. No clipboard, no bullhorn, and no fancy acronym can outrun plain old common sense. A man, or woman, should be able to sip tea on their own porch without ending up in cuffs. And if the rules don't make sense, maybe the rules need to change." Applause thundered. Fireflies blinked. Music swelled. Victoria's distant ranting faded into nothing. Harlan sat back on that same porch swing, the one that started it all, rocking slow as twilight painted the sky. Sheriff Hale dropped beside him with a contented sigh. "Funny thing about rules," Harlan said quietly, watching the neighborhood breathe easy for the first time in years. "They only work if folks agree they make sense. But tea, barbecue, and a little freedom? That'll always make sense. So here's my lazy take after telling you this tale. Don't let clipboard tyrants with God complexes run your life. Stay quiet, stay smart, and when the moment comes, drop the paperwork that flips their whole world. Common sense always wins, eventually. Now go enjoy your porch. You earned it."